Have you ever loved someone so deeply that it felt as if you were being peeled apart layer by layer? Not in the heat of passion, but in a strange silence where they unknowingly touched something within you, something you never dared to name. In the gentle dusk of middle age, love no longer arrives like a miracle. It comes like a tremor, no longer driven by the thrill of conquest, no longer fueled by the dream of building a home, but echoing something far older, more primal, the voice of the self. We think we've lived long enough to understand love, but then someone appears at the wrong time, for no good reason, with no promises, and yet we're pulled in as if our soul recognizes something that our mind cannot yet grasp. Carl Jung once said that love is the path through which the unconscious reveals itself. And in midlife, when the ego grows weary of its many roles, love becomes something sacred, a vessel for the shadow, the anima, or animus in the self to emerge into the light. So, what lies beneath this strange enchantment? Why do some loves arrive late, but sink so deep? Come with me. Let's journey inward into the depths of the soul, where love is no longer just a feeling, but a sacred ritual of transformation. There is a strange moment in life that almost no one sees coming. The moment you step across the threshold into your 40s, and suddenly the world within you begins to speak. Not the call of duty, not the whisper of old ambitions, but an echo from the darkness. From a place you've never dared to touch, where your true self quietly waits to be recognized. At this stage, you are no longer the young soul chasing experiences, nor are you quite the older person who has let life slip away. You dwell in between, a crossroads where the soul is stretched by deep, unanswerable questions. Who am I if not the roles I have worn? Why do I love? For the other person or for the part of me that has never been lived? And then, as if scripted by the unconscious, love arrives. But midlife love is unlike the love of youth. It is neither loud nor hurried. It is like a sudden gaze that makes you stand still in the midst of a crowded street, like a snippet of music that recalls something so distant you cannot name it, only that your heart drops into a deeper silence. Carl Jung calls this stage the beginning of individuation, the process in which the ego must relinquish its illusions and embark on the journey back to the self. And love at this point becomes more than companionship. It becomes a sacred mirror sent by the unconscious, so you can look back at yourself in both beauty and vulnerability. You find yourself drawn into that person's eyes not because they are perfect, but because they awaken a part of you you once lost. They evoke the Anima, the inner feminine image in the man, or the Animus, the inner masculine image in the woman. They are not that person out there, but the incomplete part within you seeking a way home. Many describe this feeling as destiny or as unfinished business from a past life. But through Jung's lens, it is the collective unconscious expressing itself. For in the depths of the psyche, love is not just an encounter, but a merging of living symbols of light and shadow, of the roles we have shown the world and the parts we have feared to face. Thus, midlife love is a healing rite, not because it is peaceful, but because it forces you to remove masks worn too long. It causes your heart to ache, not because the other person does not love you enough, but because you have never truly loved yourself wholly. That person, the one you cannot stop thinking of, whose feelings you cannot explain, whose relationship you cannot name, is the mirror reflecting your shadow. And you have two choices: run away or go deeper. But if you find the courage to go on, you'll discover that every tear holds a fragment of your soul returning home. Jung says, we do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Nothing makes us face our darkness more clearly than a love that runs so deep it cannot be controlled. Perhaps you thought at this age you'd need stability, but just when you long for the most peaceful life, fate brings someone who unsettles you to your core, not to hurt you, but to awaken you. Midlife love ultimately is not meant to complete a life, but to restore a soul. It is a journey home, not toward the other person, but toward your own self, whole, authentic, and overflowing. If you are on such a journey, I invite you to pause and share in the comments. No need to name names, no need to tell your whole story. Just a few words so that you know you are not alone, and so that others on this path can see we are walking through the mist together. Because awakening is never a solitary journey. There is always a community of souls waiting ahead. And if you're still wondering, where will this love take me? The next part is for you, because the journey this love ignites is not just about feelings. It is a sacred transformation where the soul begins to be reborn through every crack. Walk on with me, for what is most profound is still waiting in what comes next. There's a truth we often forget: what draws us to someone is often what's missing within ourselves. Especially in midlife, love is not simply about finding a companion. Consciously or not, we are searching for a lost piece of the soul. And sometimes that person shows up not to stay, but to reveal the emptiness we've long filled with roles, responsibilities, and social identities. Love becomes a fracture, not to break us, but to let the light in. It's the moment Jung called the encounter with the self, that deepest, most authentic layer of our being. In this fated connection, we begin to face the shadow, that hidden part of ourselves we've denied, avoided, or never even known existed. The one we love unconsciously activates intense emotional waves: jealousy, pain, obsession, fear of abandonment, feelings of inadequacy. And suddenly we panic, believing this can't be healthy love. But with spiritual eyes, you begin to see this is not the wrong love. It is the necessary one. They didn't come to fulfill you. They came to open you, to help you touch childhood wounds, forgotten dreams, the silenced feminine or masculine parts of you that have been buried for years. They arrive as living symbols of the Anima or Animus, the missing archetypal energies within which must be integrated for the self to become whole. Carl Jung once wrote, "We are not called to become someone else, but to become who we truly are, a complete being with both light and shadow." But that path is never gentle. It is alchemical. Like in the old art of alchemy, where raw metal is melted, broken down, and transmuted into gold. Midlife love, the kind that awakens this process, is not romantic sentiment. It is a sacred rite of transformation. You'll find yourself torn between polarities, yearning to be close, yet terrified of the pain, longing to love, yet wanting to run from the truth. You feel like a child again, sensitive, vulnerable, easily moved, but also like someone standing at the threshold of the deepest self-awareness. And in that very tension, you begin to understand it's not they who are hurting you, it's the unhealed part of you crying out to be seen. They are just the catalyst. A woman might meet a man who makes her feel profoundly seen more than anyone ever has. Not because of what he says, but because he touches the animus within her, the assertive, rational, grounded part of herself she long buried to be a good woman. In turn, that man, through her presence, may find himself dreaming again, feeling deeply, becoming soft, experiencing emotions he hasn't dared express since boyhood. And so they become soul mirrors, falling apart only to be reborn together. In a world that teaches control, logic, and strength, this kind of love feels incomprehensible. It terrifies us. But Jung would say that chaos is the very portal into the unconscious. Because you cannot heal through intellect alone. You can only become yourself by living truthfully, even in your disorder, your rage, your longing, your fear of loss. Midlife love offers this one last chance, not just to love someone else, but to finally love yourself unconditionally. And if you're in a relationship that feels both terrifying and profound, know this: you're on the right path. Don't rush for answers. Stay with the questions. Listen to the tremor within. For sometimes when we fall silent, the soul will speak. In this moment, I invite you to write just one line in the comments: "I am on the journey home." You don't need to explain. But know this: wherever you are in the world, someone else feels just like you. And your presence, even in silence, may be the light someone else needs in their own darkness. Let this video be a refuge, a sacred space where those undergoing soul transformation can recognize each other. And if you're still here, thank you for having the courage not to turn away. You've entered the deepest part of the path, what Jung called the encounter with the self. In the next part, we will go even further, not just into love, not just into the shadow, but into the most essential question of the inner journey. How do we turn this love into a sacred rite that leads us back to the whole self? Come with me. The most important part is still ahead. There comes a moment in the inner journey when language fails us, when we stop understanding ourselves with the mind and begin becoming ourselves through radical acceptance. It's no longer about analysis. It's about presence. No longer about searching for answers, but releasing the need to have them. And here's the paradox: it is love, the very thing we often see as unrelated to inner transformation, that becomes the shortest path to the threshold of the self. Carl Jung taught that the self, the integrated whole being, cannot be reached through intellect alone, but must be encountered through a deeply symbolic, numinous experience. And midlife love, no longer governed by survival or social instincts, becomes just that. So how do we transform this intense experience of love into a journey back to the self? Not by controlling it, not by labeling it as right or wrong, but by accepting that the other person may not be your forever soulmate. They are the one sent to awaken you. They may not walk with you to the end, but they are the flame that lights the sacred fork in your road, the point where you begin your descent into the underworld of your own soul. Think of it like alchemy. The raw element must be burned, broken down, and restructured into something purer. Midlife love works the same. It burns away old identities, shatters outdated patterns, and leaves ashes, from which your soul may rise like a phoenix. You will feel lonely. You will feel chaotic. You will face parts of yourself you once rejected: your need to control your possessiveness, jealousy, fear of abandonment, unworthiness, and long-suppressed desires. But remember, you are not those things, you are healing them. And if you have the courage to simply sit with these parts, not judging, not fixing, just staying with them, then you are doing something sacred. You are practicing love for yourself in its deepest form. Jung believed healing doesn't come from running away from the shadow, it comes from facing it and learning to befriend it. In relationship, the one you love isn't betraying you, they are revealing the parts of you that you have not yet loved enough. If you're in a place of emotional chaos over a love that wasn't meant to be, try asking a different question, not, how can I make them stay, but what is this person teaching me about myself? Write your answer just for yourself. Or if you feel called, share a piece of it in the comments. Because in writing, you're not just healing yourself, you may be offering a blessing to someone else still wandering through the darkness you've just emerged from. We are forming a community here, a quiet gathering of hearts learning to love again from within. And together we can nod and say, I understand. I've been there too. If you're here reading this, let me tell you something. You're not wrong for loving deeply. You're not weak for hurting because they didn't stay. You're not crazy for feeling a connection you can't explain. You're simply standing very close to the self. And that is never an easy path, but it is always a worthy one. And if you've come this far with me, keep going. Because the next chapter is where it all connects. The fragments you felt, the emotional waves you've endured, they will begin to form a picture of wholeness. Let us walk into the final chapter together, where we no longer ask, why is this happening to me? But instead begin to live the question, how can I transmute this into a soul right of return? Because in the end, love, whether it stays or leaves, is always an invitation to come home to the self. Perhaps one of life's most beautiful tragedies is when we encounter a love so deep, yet cannot keep it in the way we once imagined. But is that truly a loss? Or is it the symbolic birth of inner wholeness? Carl Jung once said, love is the experience through which we transcend the limited ego and touch the greater self within. This does not happen in safety, it often begins in upheaval. It's in the uncontrollable waves of feeling that we realize this love was never meant to be possessed, it was meant to be transformative. When you love someone your soul seems to have known forever, it may not be a sign that you're meant to be with them forever. It may be a sacred invitation for you to become the most authentic, original version of yourself. And in this part of the journey, a quiet question begins to form. How do I go on if they don't walk with me? The answer, though painful, is this. On your own 2 feet, but this time you are no longer the same. Because if this love made you face your darkness, if it made you cry over wounds you never named, if it forced you to be honest about your desires, your fears, and your illusions, then it was not a failed love. It was a love that fulfilled its purpose. It opened the door. The door to the self, where you no longer need them to reciprocate because you've begun to love yourself. Not in a selfish way, but in the way of the soul, whole, honest, and deep. In the alchemical myths Jung so cherished, there is a stage called nigredo, the dark night of the soul when all things dissolve, decay, and fall into chaos. But from that darkness, the gold is born. In the same way, the post-love phase, the aftermath of the love fever, is not the end. It is a rite of rebirth. You will learn to be alone without being lonely. You will learn to remember them without breaking. You will learn to be grateful for the very thing that once shattered you because it brought you closer to the truth of your soul. And you are not alone. There are thousands, millions of others walking this same path, hearts that have broken and in breaking become both softer and stronger. If you've read this far, I invite you to connect. Leave a line below. I am walking through the dark night, or I'm learning to love again from within. Not to explain, but to let someone else know they are not walking alone. We are not just scattered individuals, we are a waking community. And as you keep going with courage, you'll start to notice little gifts along the way. A morning you wake up without that ache in your chest. A quiet conversation with yourself you no longer avoid. A moment you forgive your past without bitterness. These small things are the golden light of the soul's alchemy. Midlife love, whether it succeeds or falls apart, is always a sacred song because it does not leave you as it found you. It calls you home, it reshapes you, and if you are willing, it renews you. And one day you will look back, not asking why did they leave, but whispering thank you. Because of you, I found myself again. In the next and final part of this journey, we'll go to its deepest point, where love is no longer just a story between two people, but becomes a sacred symbol, self meeting self. Don't turn away yet. The final chapter is the quiet hymn and the prayer for all those who dared to love and live authentically. There comes a time when you sit in silence, no longer grasping, no longer asking why, no longer needing anyone to confirm that you are worthy of love. Not because you've grown numb, but because you've passed through a sacred threshold where love is no longer something that flows outward, but a light that radiates from within. Midlife love in its essence is an invitation to return to the self, not the self of the ego, but the self of the soul, where there is no more proving pleasing or waiting to be chosen because you have chosen yourself. Carl Jung called this moment unio mystica, the mystical union of ego and self, the merging of the finite and the divine within. It is the place to which every emotional journey, every longing ache, hope, and heartbreak has quietly been leading you. You realize they don't have to come back for you to be whole. Because through that love, you have learned to hold every part of yourself, even the ones you once denied, the ones that made you feel ashamed, the ones that whispered, I'm not enough. Wholeness is not perfection. It is the integration of shadow and light of the face we show and the face we once feared. And if this love has helped you see yourself fully, then it has fulfilled its soul's purpose. At this point, love is no longer someone coming to make you happy. It becomes the journey of becoming someone who creates happiness from within. You may find yourself laughing alone, not from madness, but from the deep relief of no longer needing someone to stay for you to feel complete. You may remember them not with longing, but with quiet gratitude, because in leaving they left you with the part of yourself you had long forgotten, a soul that is already whole. Love now needs no presence, no reciprocation, no definition, because it has become awareness. A higher form of love where you don't love in order to be loved back, but because you have become love itself. You no longer ask, do they still think of me? You simply whisper, thank you for coming, and thank you for leaving just in time for me to return to myself. And if you are near this point, I invite you to pause and take one deep breath. You have come so far, far beyond trying to understand them, far beyond analyzing your feelings. You are now standing at the place where consciousness meets soul, where love is no longer a romantic story, but a rite of soul rebirth. I invite you to connect. Write just one line, perhaps I am returning to myself. Let that be your acknowledgement, not just to others, but to yourself, that you are no longer the one who once despaired, who once depended on someone else's feelings to feel alive. You are someone new, and you deserve to be seen, to be heard, and to live as your truest self. We, those who have passed through midlife love, are not like anyone else. We carry cracks, but it is through those very cracks that the light has poured in. Share that light so that others still lost in the dark may know there is a way through. And if you are ready, the next part is your final gift. The journey of transforming pain into illumination, of turning past love into new creative life force. Because here's the miracle. Once you've touched the self, you can never return to who you once were. You will create right love and live from a deeper place. Come with me, because the final chapter is really just the beginning. And then you may realize this video was never truly about another person. It was always about you. About the quiet journey your soul has walked in loneliness, in longing and tears that fell unseen. About the love you thought would break you, but instead became the crack where the light entered. About someone who touched you not with words, but with their presence, brief yet eternal. Carl Jung once wrote, "We are not called to be perfect. We are called to be whole, And wholeness does not mean the absence of pain. It means having the courage to walk through it with an open heart and honest eyes. If this love made you wake in the middle of the night, made you revisit old memories, made you ask the deepest questions of yourself, then no, you did not love wrong. You were simply evolving. Because midlife love, with all its tenderness and turbulence, does not come to fill you. It comes to awaken you. It does not say, hold on to them. It whispers, come home to yourself. And you have done that by daring to feel, to fall apart, and to begin again. If you're still here with me at this very moment, I believe you are not an ordinary soul. You are someone who has dared to live deeply, to love, not just with your heart, but with your entire being. And that is a rare kind of miracle. I don't know who you are, where you are, whom you love, or whom you've lost. But I know this, you are on the journey of becoming yourself. And that matters more than any love story's ending. So if this video touched something within you, leave a comment below. It doesn't have to be long. Just one line: I am returning to myself. That simple sentence may be the lifeline. Someone else needs someone who feels lost, someone who feels hopeless, to know they are not alone. And if you see yourself in this journey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Not for me, but for you. So that each time a new video appears, you'll remember there is a safe place for your soul to come home to. A place with no judgment, no rush, no false promises of instant happiness, just truth. And you deserve that kind of love from others, yes, but most of all from yourself. I am someone learning to return to the self just like you. And if you choose to stay there, will be many more moments to come where each video becomes a small step bringing you closer to your inner truth. Thank you for staying. Thank you for daring to love. Thank you for coming home. Are you ready for the next video, where we go beyond analyzing love and begin learning how to live with both the shadow and the light within? I'll meet you there.